Hi, and welcome to the Do Something Indie Show. We're already up to episode 8 in season 2, and I have yet another special guest tonight. This is the infamous Drew Hicks. And I think y'all know how I like stories of a journey and redemption and somebody who's actually doing something. Now, we're outside of our little friendly confines of Indianapolis here, but we're still in Indiana. So, Drew, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background, where you're staying now, and then we'll get into this interview.
Sure. I currently live in Warsaw, Indiana, northern Indiana, about 2.5 hours from Indy. Um, Background, is that what you want me to know? My background is that?
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that. I think people really are like going, "Who's this Drew Hicks guy?" Let's get into it.
Well, I consider myself a grateful addict in recovery today. Um, I'm a national recovery advocate today. That's what I do. I travel around the country, around the world, speaking about drug addiction. And but I was a drug addict, actively using drug addict for 25 years. So, and I just celebrated my 5 year clean date on February 26th. I have 5 years clean. So,
Congratulations on that. That is a big deal.
thank you.
So let's go back. Let's go back even a little bit deeper of your history of maybe how you got to that point, because we've had one phone conversation. That's it. So I'm basing some of my questions off of that and some new questions. So tell me a little bit about your childhood growing up, because to me that was as one of maybe our listeners, our viewers. That's something that interests me. How does somebody get to 25 years of drug addiction? So give us that background, if you would.
A lot of trauma, a lot of trauma. I was born into a family of actively using alcoholic drug addicts. My biological father was an addict. Um, my mother was too. I was kind of like brought into it. You know, it was what I first vivid memories was of violence and drug use. And uh, I was taken from my mom was with my dad, who was honestly, I'll be honest, he was not a very nice man. He was a very violent, very abusive guy. She just picked me and my brothers up one day and left, and decided to come from. I'm from California originally. I moved to Indiana when I was about 4 years old. So I've lived in Indiana pretty much my whole life, about 43 years of my life. So, and then we were eventually taken from her as well, because of me getting severely injured in a car accident, and so um, placed into foster care. That was my story, you know. But I was in an amazing foster care family. I don't have a war story to talk about how nasty my foster care was. Okay, it was great. It was a great family, good morals. You know, people went to church every Sunday. We went to. I mean, they were just great people. You know. But I got to 25 years of active because I never dealt with the trauma that I endured as a child. Okay, and that was my problem. You know, it just started one day, and honestly, John, it just honestly about the age of 15, it all came back to me. All that violence, all that abuse, all that, all that replaying this in my head again, all the stuff I had endured, and I just happened to be at my friend's house one day when my friend was talking to his older brother, and I was really struggling. And my friend said, "My Drew's really struggling." He goes, "I'll tell you what I do. I just drink a beer," and uh, so I drank a couple beers that night, and it made me feel good. But I knew immediately alcohol wasn't really what I wanted. It was something took the edge off, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. And then it wasn't long before I found cocaine, you know, and then it was off to the races, you know. And I struggled but I got deep real quick, bro. I really got deep real quick. I developed a 3 8 ball a week habit at the age of 16. Um, and I was a IV drug user by the age of 17. So
Wow, that's just. I mean, and did that sort of fill that gap during when you were doing that, or did it just sort of put some icing over it, or what was? Give me what that feels like.
that's the question of all questions. You know, there's as addicts, you know, in active addiction, we're continuously striving to try to fill a void. Okay, there's something missing. We believe there's something missing. Okay, a lot of addicts like to talk about running and hiding and masking and numbing the pain, you know, of maybe trauma that they've experienced or abuse that they experienced. But honestly, man, scared to death to live life in reality. You know, I didn't want to have to face the facts that I'd have been sexually molested. I didn't want to face the facts that I had been beaten, you know, and broken bones. I didn't want to face the fact that I had to see things that I probably shouldn't have seen at a young age. You know, I just didn't want to live in reality, and so I, I did what I believed to be my solution at the time, and I found that in cocaine and in a needle, and so then it just piled on one thing after another, brother. It just turned into, you know, with the criminal lifestyle that came with it, you know, the robbing, the stealing, the you know, just breaking law after law. And I spent, you know, the majority of my adult life in a penitentiary because of it. I spent 15 years in prison.
Now, when you were in prison, were you able to stay clean in there, or was that?
No, I mean, not even a chance. See, I had an obsession, deep rooted obsession to stay high. And so what I would do, like any other addict, I manipulated the Department of Corrections right here in the state of Indiana into believing that I knew how to work in a hospital on campus because I knew that was the only place I would be able to find an insulin syringe. And so they gave me the job, and I just was able to fuel my addiction because out prison there's a hustle. You got to hustle. You know, I was getting all the things that I needed, and I was hustling. I was selling the needles. I was selling dope. I was running cigarettes. I was doing everything I had to get high. My first drug overdose was sitting on a toilet in prison.
Really? And
Really.
so you overdosed in prison. What happened with that? Did they just say, "Oh well, say
Well,
la
back
vie,"
in
or
that happened back in 1996. I was in prison in 1996, doing a 14-year prison sentence, and back then there was no Narcan. Okay, there wasn't this life-saving drug that we hear about called Narcan. There was none of that. That was back when you overdosed back then. They threw you in a big tub of ice, and if you made it, you made it. And that was
so that's
basically,
what they did to you. They just pretty much
yeah.
said,
I
"Sink or
remember
swim,
waking up.
sink or swim,
I remember
literally."
waking up freezing. I woke up freezing. I was in this big tub of ice, and I was like, "What am I doing here?" You know. And that's what that's what they did. They didn't have anything to save you then.
Wow. And if, for those that don't know what Narcan is, it is a drug that they give you, and I think it's quite expensive. And for those of you who know me, I live here in Mars Hill, Southwest Indianapolis, and we've had like 1,700 drug runs over the past 3 or 4 years. So I'm familiar with ambulances coming to get people, and there is a much better chance of recovering from an overdose than there was per se in the 90s and the even 2000s. So this problem is not something that's new. So let's talk about the overdose real quick. I want to talk about this. Have you noticed since the stimulus check's been out if your overdoses have been up there? Because I noticed here in Mars Hill that we've had pretty much an ambulance every day since the stimulus check. Is that something that is fair to say?
Astronomically went up. Astronomically, yeah, absolutely. I've noticed a huge difference in our community since a month and a half ago when they started cashing in on those checks. Um, it goes without question. You give an actively using drug addict $1,400. They're not going to spend it wisely. It's all going to the dope man. Um, they're just their tolerance for the drug is going to go a lot higher. You have to, even people who don't struggle with drug addiction or never have struggled with drug addiction has to understand if you give an actively using drug addict $1,400, what do you think's going to happen? I mean, and it's went up drastically, drastically.
Yeah, and I do, and I like I said, I live in it. I mean, we have that, and there, a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of rural areas. I mean, it doesn't matter. Drug addiction gets the rich, the poor, the everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as and you're like a well-known recovery enthusiast or whatever, let's walk through a day of what you deal with as far as how many people do you actually talk to and are mentoring, and what does that look like?
I mean, between all my platforms on social media, brother, I have a little over 500,000 followers altogether. Um, it's it can be overwhelming. Okay, I have an amazing team that helps me. But with that many people, you have to understand I can't do this by myself. Got an amazing team, which I call the Dream Team, who help me in my group and help me on my other platforms. But I get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages all around the world. This is not just an Indiana thing. This is a world thing. Okay, this Indiana and the United States don't just struggle with drug addiction. The whole world does. And so I'm getting people from all over the world, and yeah, it could be very overwhelming. But I've learned to create boundaries because I myself in recovery, I can't overwhelm myself because I could probably make a mistake too. And so it just takes it takes a team. I have an amazing team who helps me. And there's one of my teammates right there. And
Yeah, yeah, you got some of your fans on here, and that was what one of my questions is: how do you keep your wits about you, so to speak? I mean, I know that what I've found is that somebody who is recovering is if they're helping somebody else. And I put on your quote, you not giving up is pretty much an example for somebody else not to give up. You have a bunch of encouragement, quotes. I mean, you can tell that this is a 24 hours, 7 days a week struggle, and you're just putting it out there and you're keeping it real. And I've done some counseling in that, and I've had when you have a failure, you always feel like you're sort of responsible for it. I mean, how do you cope with that? Do you just
I'll tell you,
for me that's tough. I just was wondering how you would cope with things.
I don't mean this in any way, shape, or form because if any addict and active addiction who's watched my videos or anybody who follows me knows how I'm such an empath for the addict who struggles. But I'm going to say this, and I was told this early when I first started doing this. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm going to say this, but I'm going to explain to you what it means after the fact. I was told when I first started, building platforms and helping people and doing live videos and doing what I do today is that when it comes to recovering drug addicts and alcoholics, or if you're dealing with an addict at all, you got to learn to step over the bodies. Okay. And the reason why I say that is that this disease kills. Okay. And you're going to you can't get that emotional attachment to people because unfortunately we die. If we use too much drugs if we get a fentanyl shot, we're going to die. Doesn't mean I don't love them. I love them all, brother. And I want to see them all get well. But I've been to over 276 funerals since I've been doing this personally, so I can't allow that pain that I might have for somebody who's passed away get me off my path because there's so many people out there in the world who still want this, right? And I got to stay focused. I got to keep myself grounded. I have an amazing higher power who I call God in my life, who I'm allowed to give a lot to him. I get my strength from God, and I work a 12-step program, and I have an amazing sponsor who's got over 31 years. 31 years, April 15th, he'll have 31 years. But it takes a team. It takes a village. It takes a village. I can't do this by myself. And I got the right people in my life and the right team in my life to help me do this.
Yeah, it can get very overwhelming. Let's talk about the potency and the quality and the availability of drugs today, because it seems to me that if I want anything, I can go right out here down my street and I could get that.
Absolutely. I got clean over 5 years ago. Just in the last 5 years, the drugs are nothing the same. Okay. Fentanyl overdoses back a little over 5 years ago was, you heard one here and there. It's not like it is today. Okay. These drugs today, these are all man-made drugs, all synthetic drugs. These are all drugs that they're just mixing different things with different things to make new designer drugs. They're just, it's crazy, John, what these kids are consuming, what they're using to get high.
It's all about the money too, isn't it? It's about somebody making money off of somebody's misery. Is that fair to say?
It's the only thing it's about. It's the only thing it's about. It's to capitalize on people's diseases. Okay, because this is what I have, and what so many people who follow me have is a disease. It's a disease of addiction. It's been proven a disease. So what they're doing is they're capitalizing on people's misfortune, which I call a disease of addiction.
Wow. And so, as far as what would you say, in my experience with recovery, I know that, this dude named Jesus is a big factor. It really, to me, even if you're like Linus and the Pumpkin Patch, and you have an imaginary friend. I get some of my Jesus haters tell me that. Oh, I wish I had an imaginary friend. But honestly, in psychology, with the physiology of addiction, we talk about replacement therapy. It's an old therapy that was done in New York that alcoholics would get into running, and they would run marathons, and they would replace that high they got from drinking with running, and they wanted to go faster, so they quit doing that. So at the very minimal, I would say that Jesus would be somewhat of a replacement of another accountability partner of somebody with that. Walk me through that, because I know that was a big factor in your continued recovery. You never say you're recovered, right? It's continued recovery.
That's right.
Preach to me a little bit. How about that?
Well, absolutely, brother. You know what? There's three things I try to instill into people every time they watch me go live. Okay. And that's going to be an addict in recovery is going to need three things in order to have a successful recovery. Okay. And if they can keep these three things, then it's definitely going to have to be in this order. Okay. It's going to have to go God, recovery, which I consider, when I say recovery, I consider a program. And I got that book right back here. Okay. This book right here. This book says Narcotics Anonymous. Okay,
that's your addict's Bible, then, right?
That is, but then I have the Bible itself too.
Right.
When I got my God, I got my recovery, which is my program, and then family, the fellowship. Okay.
There you go. You're teaching your folks. They're paying attention. So
absolutely,
awesome.
with those three things, and in exactly that order. So you can't get that order messed up at all. Okay, a lot of people want to put their family in front of their recovery. Like a lot of addicts come into recovery thinking, I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this for my kids. Well, you're taking away from what the root problem wasn't your children. The root problem was you. You got to do this for you first and foremost, because you can never be any good to your children if you're not good to yourself first and foremost, period. Okay. And you get a little misguided. And not to say that brothers and sisters, I did too. I got a little sidetracked and started, but I learned, with the program and a sponsor. Got to have that sponsor. If you're going to work a program, you got to have a sponsor too. You can't do this by yourself. Okay. You need that accountability person. You need that guidance. You need that maturity. You need that experience. Okay. I needed a grown ass man to tell Drew Hicks how to live his life. I did, so with that, it can happen. And all this program is, brother, this 12-step program, whether it be Narcotics Anonymous or whether it be AA or CR or whatever they do, any 12-step program, it is to introduce you to a higher power.
Yeah, and some people may or may not know this about me. My mom was she abused prescription drugs back in probably 70s, 80s, and she went to AA and got her coins and everything, and it worked. And when she got clean, this may be true about born again Christian too. As soon as they find Jesus, everybody's going to find Jesus, right? Or if you're not a smoker anymore, you're not. Well, my mom got on this kick of, hey, Johnny, no caffeine for you. No anything. Just. And so my mom passed away at age 51 of liver cancer, and it may or may not have had anything to do with that. But and that was in 1989. So in memory of her, I have not had a cup of coffee since then. Now I do drink the Coca-Cola, which has caffeine. I did that for about 8 years. Caffeine. I think caffeine's the least of our issues on many days. But so I got to see that struggle of one that she was. Her friends did. Nobody knew. She was definitely a closet addict. And for her to come out and say that, we were all surprised, because if she drank one glass of wine, she was like, but she was always on that slow burn, and that's probably a good thing, because me and my two younger sisters, we could drive anybody crazy. So, I do, this is one of those things that's close to me in some ways. And I think pretty much a lot of folks watching have either been a victim of addiction or have had somebody close. I mean, it is pretty much touches everybody, right, Drew?
There is not a family in this country where drug addiction has not affected. Somebody in the family, whether it be a cousin or whether it be a brother or sister, mom, a dad, a daughter, son, this there's not a family in this country that we live in right now, John, where drug addiction has not affected that family in some way. And that tells you how bad this is.
Yeah, I've had families that have found their son dead on their front porch with a needle in his arm that had been recovered for 6 months. And I know that's a common issue that you get clean for a while, then you go back and you hit that same dosage and
Mm-hmm.
lights out. And,
That's
it's
it.
just, I mean, I didn't, what do you say? Do you just, I mean,
You know, what do I say to the families?
to the family, to yourself, to anybody, but yeah, to the family. What do you say to somebody like that? I mean, I know several people that, and it's usually in their mid 20s that
Yeah.
and it's people that started about when you were 17. It's kids that started in high school and they roll through up to 20. They decide 25, whatever, and this isn't for me. I'm going to quit. They get in a program, they get clean, and then they relapse, and then it's lights out. So, and that's one of those things where it's a mistake that kills you, and there's no lesson learned there really, and on this side. But so what? I guess what would you say to a kid that's maybe 15 or 17? How do you get somebody to not go down this path? I mean, you wouldn't be the person you are today without going down that path. Now, I would not
No.
suggest that to everyone, but you're a
Well, no,
solid
no,
dude
no.
now.
I mean, honestly, though, brother, I do go into schools and talk to schools and the kids, um, and I agree with you. We need to start. We need to get in there when they're young. Okay, we got to get them in there where they're before they get offered. Okay, because nobody knows they're a drug addict are going to suffer with the disease of addiction until you put the drug in your body. Okay, you could there's hundreds of thousands of people in this country today who've never done drugs but very well could be drug addicts. Okay, but they don't that obsession for the drug was never fueled because they haven't put that drug in their body. So we need what you're right in saying is that we need to get there into the schools. Okay, talk to them, create awareness saves lives. See, the program that I work at says it's an anonymous program. Okay, because a lot of people don't want their business put out there. In my anonymity, it's Drew Hicks' in. I am the addict who refuses to be anonymous. Although I work an anonymous program, and I'll never mess up your anonymity, but I will put mine out there for the whole world to say. See, I'm tired of people talking about we need to fix this problem, but behind closed doors, it's a hush hush thing. Okay, we don't talk about it. We're gonna sweep it under the rug. Now somebody's family's struggling. Well, it's not gonna look good. Our son's a drug addict, so we got to keep quiet about it. Okay, you know, let's wake up, America. Okay, your son has a drug problem. He's not. There's hundreds of thousands of sons and daughters who have drug problems. Your child is not the only one. Would you rather be quiet about it and risk the chance of losing your child forever, or talk about it and reach out and communicate and get to understanding of what it is your child's struggling with in order to fix the problem? We're so caught up in this. Let's be quiet. Okay, we know you got a drug problem. We'll get you the help you need, but we don't need to speak about it in public. Okay? I'm the guy who's out there on the courthouse lawn screaming this with a megaphone, bro.
You're
That's
on the Do Something Indie show.
yeah,
And
and I think that's why I've been able to build such a following that I have. It's because I keep this stuff real. I'm not out here to blow smoke up nobody's ass. Okay, I speak from personal experience on where this drug's going to take you. Okay, and I'm lucky, bro, that I'm still alive today. I went through 3 overdoses, and the last one in 2015, I was dead for 4 minutes.
yeah,
Back.
I think God keeps us around for something. It's sort of like the drunk driver. When there's a crash, the drunk driver is the guy that lives. Did you
That's
notice that? It seems like, well, I don't know if God wants you to stay here and deal with this or whatever it is, but it just seems like, well, why? Well, they say, well, the body was for lack. I don't believe that garbage. Let's shift gears a little bit. Here's addictions takes many forms too, not just drugs. Let's talk about how difficult it is for a chemical dependency as opposed to, say, a mental, so say maybe somebody's addicted to porn. Let's talk about the difference in that and how much more difficult it is maybe with the chemical, the physiology a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, every drug addiction, excuse me, not just drug addiction, every addiction, whether it be pornography, whether it be gambling, whether it be codependency, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whatever it may be, is fueled by an obsession. Okay, an obsession. And that is that's in the mind. Okay. Feeling continuously striving to try to fill it with something. Okay. I wanted to feel, whether it be drugs, gambling, sex, porn, whatever it may be. You need to feel it. You think that fulfillment at that moment is gonna get that fix, that that's gonna make you feel good for that moment. And I never, there's some addictions that I've never struggled with. I've never had any mental health issues. Okay. But a mental health and drug addiction, they kind of go almost hand in hand. Okay. They want to self-medicate, with drugs because they want to kind of feel normal again. I've dealt with a lot of people who struggle with mental health issues, such as bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD. They were always trying to self-medicate to try to make them feel not so out of place, not so out of, and so I can only speak from my own experience, and my addiction being with the drugs and alcohol. Um, it's just a monster, brother. Any addiction that you struggle with is a deep rooted obsession. It's an obsession for more, more,
Yeah,
more.
yeah, and you say it's a monster, and we're talking about different addictions. There was a gentleman from Mars Hill that was on our show last year. I think it's episode 40, 42, something like that. Kyle McIntosh, and his addiction was graffiti, tagging buildings, and he graffitied the bridges, all the areas so many times. What they finally caught him and said, either you're going to go live with your mom in Seymour, or we're going to throw you in jail for years. So he goes away. This is 20 years ago, and story of redemption. And brother,
Yeah,
you are a key story. We were able to get him a permit to come back and paint the smoking bridge, because he's a tattoo artist now and he's still a graffiti artist, but he's getting paid to do it and legally do it. And he painted a big octopus on the bridge, and it's called the Mars Hill Monster. And
yeah,
there's two things. We have Bill and Mickey's Pizza here that has the Mars Hill Monster, but it's also the monster of Mars Hill. And unfortunately, probably two or three or four tentacles of that octopus is addiction. And so I just find it so hard, the physical hold, that the chemistry, the chemical brain imbalance that has that. And then I know that you can't speak for everyone, but how were you able to break that chemical addiction? Because it changes your chemistry in your brain, and so I mean, gee, your three things, but what kind of physical pain did you go through?
Initially, you need getting clean. Of course, there's that dope sickness. This is why a lot of addicts don't get clean. Okay, in fear of getting sick. Okay, uh, and that's just basically an addict's worst nightmare is being dope sick, because of, with severe body cramp, your muscles tighten up in your body. Your stomach pains, you're crapping, and you're everywhere. It's brutal. It's like the worst flu that you've ever had in your life. It feels like the worst flu. You
So
know,
how long does something like that last? I mean, is it probably varies for people, but just in general?
It varies. I was dope sick and going through withdrawal in the county jail when I got clean for about 2.5 weeks. Okay, and so it just depends on what drug the addict is using. It depends on how long they've been using it. There's a lot of variables that go into how long a person's going to withdraw. I highly recommend that nobody try to withdraw from certain drugs at home by themselves. There's like with alcohol or benzos, which those two could actually physically kill you if you try to
Wow.
do it by yourself. Um, so I always recommend people, going to a medical detox where there's medications that can help you with the detox. So, but yeah, I did it by myself without any detox. That was county jail was my detox.
Okay, yeah, and I do know some people that and I'm in construction, and I hire felons, and I hire some folks that have had issues, and they get clean while they're in, and then they come out. And sometimes they struggle. Some just cannot be. They're just institutional. They need somebody to tell them what to do.
Hmm.
So it's just tricky that way to to get somebody get them in the right state of mind. So what would you, as far as, let's talk about the people that are on the other side of this. What is advice that you give, say, a parent or a friend or somebody that is struggling with a friend that's addicted? How do you, what kind of advice would you give them?
First of all, I always tell them that you don't have the power to save your loved one, okay? And stop carrying that burden on your shoulders, thinking that you might be able to find that power, because the lightning bolt of action is only found within each and every single addict. The addict has to have the willingness to get clean, okay? But what a loved one, what they do have the power in is planting seeds. I always tell them, give your child or your loved one examples of people who are making recovery work. Show them, and maybe it's even some of their friends who used to get high with them, okay, that are now living successful lives today in recovery. You can't see, if you give them that proof of somebody they were getting high with and are living a good life right in front of their face, it can be done. Here it is. Here's the proof. Because most addicts like me I could never believe that I could have that. Even I used to see some of my friends who got clean before me, and I'm like, I'm unique. I'm one of those addicts who just was not dealt those kind of cards, right? I can't get clean. I've dealt with too much trauma. I've dealt with too much abuse. I've been through so much. There's no way in hell that I can get clean. Not Drew Hicks, okay? I'm not one of the lucky ones. But I always tell loved ones, because 90% of the people who reach out to me, brother, are the loved ones. The loved
Yeah.
ones reach out to me
Yeah.
more than anybody. It's not that the addict and active addiction. I mean, they do too, but the majority of the people who call me and message me are the mom and dads. And so I tell them to plant seeds, encourage them, create boundaries. First of all, you're going to have to establish boundaries in your life, because an addict will take until you have nothing to give. Okay. So create boundaries, healthy boundaries, establish those boundaries, tell them, hey, I'm here. I love you. And sometimes you got to love your child from a distance. Okay. The hardest thing for any parent to do is to shut the door on their child's face. Okay. And say, get out of here. My dad did that to me at 17 years old. He said, get out of the house. I was adopted. Okay. I just told you my story. I was adopted by a great family. My foster family turned into my adopted family. They adopted me. And so old school, tough love worked on me. Not in the beginning, but towards the end, when I started missing that family, that love that my family gave me, it was a driving force in me trying to change my life. It took me 25 years to get to there. And but yeah, you can always plant seeds. You can give them examples. You can provide resources. You know, and you stop enabling your baby. Stop giving your child money. Stop paying their bills. Stop taking them places. Stop being that go-to person that they can always count on to do what they need to get done. You're going to do it for them. Don't do that. I understand your child needs to eat. Go buy them food. Don't give them no money. I understand that they need housing. Okay, well, I don't trust that you put them in your house, especially one in active addiction. You might come home from work and everything's gone. Okay, but you can provide resources for a shelter. You can even pay for, if you have the for availability, pay for a hotel for a few nights until they can to get into a detox or a treatment facility. But there's all kinds of things you can do, but don't enable. Enable, if you baby an addict, you bury the addict. Okay, and so
Yeah, and that is one of the hardest things to do, because it's almost like, somebody drowning. If you swim out, they're going to take you down with you. So throw them the life ring, but don't be an enabling friend. And I've noticed that with a lot of things of parents. They call them helicopter parents or whatever.
mhm.
But boy, it just seems like there's so many things in this world that can trip us up and get us into trouble for
Mhm.
that. Well, one of the things that you have programs. Let's talk about how much it costs. To say go to a Fairbanks, and like I said, I've done addiction counseling and relationship counseling. I love relationships much better because it's not so messy with the chemicals and the whatnot. And honestly, there's a higher success rate. And I hate failing. But let's talk about the cost. And I know one of the things that you are able to provide is a program that works, that is, not so much skin in the game. And, some of these programs can get really, really expensive. So talk about the difference between those programs, say what you do.
You're absolutely right, brother. And that's a lot of the reason. I did work in the treatment industry for about 3 years. I've been out of the treatment industry now for a little over about a year and a half now. But to get to a private facility, you understand that you have to have private insurance. Okay. And that kind of insurance only comes from your employer or a child who's 26 to 18 to 26 on mom and dad's insurance. Okay. So that's about 2% of the struggling actively using drug addicts in this country. Okay. You got most drug addicts who are actually using don't have jobs, don't have private insurance, they don't have a pot to piss in, honestly. So what I've done is I've put together resources for people who don't have money. Okay. And like you just said, I'm gonna use your example just a minute ago. You said it right. You hit the nail on the head, brother. If they throw you a life preserver, you now if I throw you a life preserver, you can't bitch about it and throw it back because it's not the color you want. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
It,
you'll have that.
you will have that. And I believe me, I get it all the time. I don't want to go there. I want to go. You have to understand you don't have the resources to get to these places. It's unfortunate the way the treatment facility is set up. Okay. So, with you get the better treatment if you have the better insurance. Okay. But this is where I want to tell every addict right here. I don't care if you go to Club Med or if you're in the basement of your jail, your county jail. If you have the willingness to get clean, you will get clean. You don't need to have a beach resort to get clean. Okay? If you truly want to get clean, you can get clean anywhere. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to. I didn't get clean at Club Med. I wouldn't have. I would have loved to look out my treatment window and see the beach. Okay, I would have loved that. But I did. That's not my case. Me getting clean is a product of drug court and sober living right here in Indiana. Well, there ain't no big beaches here in Indiana, brother. Okay, so
Oh,
and no palm trees, no palm trees. But yes, they can get very expensive. Very if you don't have the insurance, if you were to come out and pay outright cash, we're talking $100,000. You
it,
know,
it, it is. It's extreme, and I've seen uh, people go through all that and still fail. I mean, and that's what's so very frustrating. It's it can be compared to pushing a rope. Unless that other person is going to put a little slack back on it, there's not going to be able to
well,
do
that's
any.
a lot of the reason why people like the insurance. Since we're talking about it, might as well talk about the insurance has changed so much just in the last 3 years. Because, like you said, we got these kids who are going down on mom and dad's insurance to Florida to treatment, and they're going down 3 and 4 times a year because they keep relapsing. Well, the insurance companies said we're had enough of that. We're not gonna because they're stacking up these $600,000, $700,000 bills. Insurance has got to pay for that, and they said no, we're not doing that no more. Majority of the insurance companies that I know of here in Indiana, uh, for people who get insurance through their employer, will have a clause: no treatment, no mental health, because they don't want to pay those big treatment industry bills. Okay, and especially if your child's going down 2 and 3 times, you know. So they've really cut down on the insurance.
Yeah, and to get into, say, we have Wheeler Mission here and some other places, and they have such a tough intake program for that. And I do a lot of service with the homeless, with our homeless folks, and I call it the third, a third, a third. There's a third addicted, a third mental health, and a third that they just want to be that way. That's
Mm-hmm.
just simple. Boil it down to what I see a lot of, and my policy is I won't give you any money, but I'll give you food. I'll give you a ride. I'll give you a word, whatever that takes. And it's tough. I mean, it's tough to see people struggling and suffering, and but you have to have those healthy boundaries, like you talked about. So,
Have
what would
to.
you say as far as the effectiveness of either one of these programs? I've really noticed that the amount you spend has little to do with it. More of a attitude of the person that's being treated. Uh, is 99.9% of the success is from the person.
That's
So
it. That's it.
yeah.
That's it. You know,
So go ahead.
I just think, so much money, from I've seen families go bankrupt trying to help their child. Okay. And in my mind, in my experience with the treatment industry, whether it be private insurance or whether it be a state facility, it's ridiculous to lose your life savings to try to help your child. Okay, it's totally, in my mind, totally unnecessary. Like you said, if your child truly wants to get clean and not just go on vacation, because that's a lot of kids who are struggling. They think, oh, I'm going down to Florida, or I'm going out to California, or I'm going to some beach. I'm going on vacation. What child wouldn't want to do that? So stop sending your kid to a vacation because
It's sort of rewarding bad behavior. And I think that, I always say, do something indie show. Everybody's got a story. And do you think that some of it's, the story itself is sensationalized because, it seems like we have to have a struggle to be valid anymore. I don't know how much that has something to do with it, or the old saying, oh, I could just quit anytime. This seems like there's some of that going on. It's like these shooters in schools or whatever, they're copycat because they see somebody else doing it. Do you feel that there's some of that people see the glamorous side of drug use from maybe our media or movies?
Oh, absolutely,
Outside
man.
source stuff.
Well, at a young age, yeah, we're all very impressionable people. We want to fit in, and since I can remember, uh, getting high and drinking on the weekends in school, well, it was cool. Okay, and you see it in every movie that's ever made. About with kids growing up, or every major motion picture. There's drug use in it. It's, of course, it's absolutely glamorized. But they don't tell you what the cost is. Okay, it's all about, we got these big well-known movie stars are doing cocaine or drinking. Okay, of course, every other kid who idolizes these people, well, I want to do what they're doing. Okay, we're impressionable. Okay, especially at a young age. They don't tell you, and they don't give you the fine print about what happens when you drink too much and when you use too much cocaine or whatever drug it is. Yeah, absolutely. Media, movies, songs,
Yeah,
songs.
no
Music
kidding.
is terrible about it. Music is terrible about it. Um, yeah, brother, it's everywhere. It's unfortunately part of our society.
So I'm going to tell you, I've already noticed. I see some of your folks on here, some of my folks that have been touched by this issue, this terrible, paralyzing issue at times. And you're doing this every night at 8 p.m. And I got this is your website down below where you do your
Mhm.
broadcast pretty much. And I do appreciate every night at 8. Is that about what you do?
At 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I do all my live videos from my public figure page on Facebook,
Okay.
and then I share it out to all my other platforms from there.
Yeah, so if you just put in the search for Drew Hicks on Facebook, you'll see public figure. And I mean, I'm telling you, it's impressive what he's built. How long has it taken you to build that audience?
I built that platform on April of 2018.
Wow. And all organic. We were talking
All
off air
organic.
about my paltry 1,600 followers. I think you got that in a day. So,
Well,
but
I'm averaging about 25,000 followers a month.
yeah, just go on with yourself now. And that's what I want to tell folks that are watching this. If you're some of the people on the Do Something Indie page and you have somebody struggling, Drew Hicks is a guy that's going to give you encouragement daily. He's going to give you resources you need. This is his way to pay back for what he's been blessed to be through 3 overdoses and all these ordeals. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. And Drew, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you letting the Do Something Indie show bump you off your 8 o'clock. But hopefully, it's a little change of pace for some folks. I noticed that sometimes helps. But I would love to see something down here in the Mars Hill where maybe we could get together and collaborate on something that I can direct people to just to get to you because we have Art Center here, the Mars Hill Art Center there, and we try to do what the neighborhood needs and activities. I'm a big activities guy, keeping people busy doing things besides bad things is always positive. Right. So let's stay in touch. And I truly appreciate this. This has just been great. I've learned something for every guest I have on here. And it's just very impressive what you're doing. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. And also a shout out to Tom Wade, because he ran across you and he said, "Hey, John, you got to check this guy out. He's, right in your wheelhouse on what you're doing, and he's doing something." So you are the quintessential do something Indiana guy, because that's what we're talking about. So let's stay in touch with this, and I appreciate all the comments that everybody had on here and the participation. And hey, if you're struggling with some kind of addiction, tune into Drew. Like I said, he's got words of encouragement, and he's just a great guy. So, Drew, I'm going to let you close it out here with maybe one of your favorite words of encouragement, or just something to give everybody a little pep talk before we go.
Well, first of all, thank you again, John, for having me on your show. I appreciate it. And it was not a problem bumping my show. My followers and family, they understand. But what I would like to tell any person, of one of the people who truly watch you, or who might watch your video later tonight or tomorrow, if you do have a family member who's struggling, please, like I said, John told you how you can get a hold of me. Okay. Get a hold of me. Okay. Because tomorrow's not promised to any one of us, and I don't want to see your child suffer or struggle in this disease of addiction any longer than they have to. They very well may not know who they can talk to, or who they can lean on, or who they can, just pick up the phone and call or message. I'm right here. I've been doing this for over 4 years. Okay. Like John said, I have a very huge following on social media. I do live videos. I encourage. I can't save your child, but I can love your child back to life. I promise you that much. I can love them back to life. I can provide resources. I can be encouraging. I can support. And then when you come over on my platform, you got a big old huge family over there who want to love on them too. Okay.
Yeah, I see that. I saw with your viewers how they were sort of catching up, saying, "Hey, how you doing?" And I think that's key, to be accountable to each other. When somebody slips a little bit, you have somebody else there to hold them up. Well, Drew, I do appreciate it. And let's stay in touch. And I will definitely be leading some folks over to your side when I can, because, it is tricky talking to somebody about that stuff. And, but it's so important, and it's so widespread these days. So, hey,
thank you, brother.
Another great episode of Do Something Indy, and yet another special guest. So tune in next week. Hold on, I'm going to put this banner up real quick. We have an award-winning filmmaker. I mean, look at these famous people you're rubbing elbows with, Drew, or they're rubbing elbows with you. And then feel free to share this video to whoever you would like to share it to. And if it just helps one person, we're ahead of the game on things. So until next week at 8:00, it's been a very good show. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for the time, Drew.
Thank you.
Peace out.